Dave Gleeson, welcome to noise11.com. Good to have you back.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here, mate.
Yep, you're out with the Lifeblood tour. Is this alluding to a Lifeblood album in 2025, or is this just the title of the tour at this stage?
Just the title of the tour at this stage. We've got a song that we're working on that's actually called Lifeblood as well. But just with all the stuff that's being taken away, you got Spotify stealing music and all that type of thing. The lifeblood of the band is to be out on the road live and touring, getting in front of people, and I feel like we're reaching new people now. So it's a nice kind of nice bit of a tie-in with Lifeblood.
Okay, so no new album, but we do know that there's been a few songs that people have been hearing for the first time out there. What have we got here? Impossible and Come Down. Tell me about these two songs.
Yeah, well, Impossible came off the Gorilla album, or the self-titled album in '95.
Wow, so rarely played.
Yeah, rarely played. Grant Walmsley wrote it, and it's kind of like a good song about even when the odds are against you and it looks like it's impossible, you might as well have a crack or die trying. So yeah, that's a good one, just kind of for the times. And Come Down is off the Professional Misconduct album. And the thing I struggle with it, because when you bring out a new album, well, with this album, all the songs have felt very relevant, and because Paulie passed, it kind of felt special to be able to do as many as we could. But you're always getting told, oh, you can only play 4 or 5 new songs because people start to lose interest. It's like, I really do enjoy playing all the songs on a new album. So we've got Come Down. So we've now played Nothing to Lose, Second Chance, Shadows, and Come Down. And we played Lying With Her, the country song on the Professional Misconduct album, Lying With Her, Thinking About You. And so we're up to nearly halfway. We've nearly played half of all the songs on the album. So that makes me feel a bit better about it.
Yeah, well, if you can do a different song from the new album at every show, you could sort of cover off the album over the course of a tour, couldn't you?
Yeah, certainly could. Yeah. And, it's obviously you've got to strike a balance between the songs that people want and need to hear on a night. But it's also, I think when you start off in a band and no one knows any of your songs, I think it's incumbent on the band to really kind of sell it. And for an example of that, we were on the Rock the Boat cruise recently, and Sisters Doll, who are a young bunch of fellas who I like a lot. But they got on the boat and no one knew any of their songs, except, there were some fans on there. But it's how you sell it. You get out there and you go, right, this is a new song and you're going to love it, So I miss those days where you just get up there with all that bravado and say, I don't care if you've never heard it, you're hearing it now.
Yep, spoken like a true Triple M person. Yes, and we should add, what happens on the boat stays on the boat.
Yes, there were some great times had on the boat. We had one show in 7 days, so you know what they say, idle hands do the devil's work.
Okay, so looking at the set list on this current tour, the two missing albums, Scam 2000 and Do You 2008, have they fallen by the wayside? What's your personal thoughts on the records, and do they have a place in the future set lists?
Yeah, they do. We were actually discussing putting Do You itself, the title track, off that album. We're going to put that in. But yeah, as I say, time constraints, and you want to leave people not going, oh God, is they going to do another song? So yeah, we talked about putting that one in. Scam, it was kind of a lot of, yeah, it was a period of flux for the band. Management was changing. Here's the story about when we recorded that album. I sat the boys down. I said, listen, This is ultra important, this record. It's make or break time. Everyone's got to get into the studio, and we've got to be hit the ground running and go for it. And that was on the Friday, and we're in Melbourne. I had a big weekend. By Monday, I got in the studio. I couldn't even talk. And the boys are just looking at me. Nice one, coach. Yeah, good one. So that took a few days for me to recover. Yeah, just there's some great ideas on the Scam record, but just some that didn't kind of really get to the point we wanted to. So that's the ups and downs of making albums over the years.
When you think about those first four albums, which still make up the bulk of the set list today, so, that's a body of work that happened from 1991 through to about, 1997.
Yep.
That those few years in your life have laid the foundation for the next 30, 40 years in your life.
Indeed, they have. Yeah, look, it was a great time for us when we first kicked off. We were just lucky enough to kind of slide in on the back of that amazing period of the mid-70s to all through the 80s, when there was just an absolute plethora of Australian bands doing well, not only here but overseas. The radio was ravenous for more Australian content. So we're very lucky to get on tour with people like Barnsey and the Angels and Tats and Divinals, and kind of tap into their crowd. So yeah, it was that period of being on the road and kind of wherever you lay your hat, that's where you're staying tonight, and writing songs in a real kind of with a real energy, with a real kind of edge. It was kind of how you were living, I guess. And as times goes by and you get a bit more comfortable and stuff like that in your life, I guess you kind of you don't write with that same intensity, with that same type of spark. Or that's kind of what I think happened with the first four albums, was that there was a real urgency to the songwriting and to the spark of recording.
That first album, All for One, 1991, featured a track, Fat Rich, and we sort of, so we don't get flagged by YouTube, have to put a C,
certainly.
asterisk, 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 S at the end of that, which I imagine was recorded by a couple of young 20-something cheeky, naughty boys who could not have imagined in 1991 recording that song that it would still be integral to the set list in 2024.
Yeah, look, it's probably more integral now because of the way the world's going, with the rich getting richer and the poor getting the picture.
You should coin that line.
Yeah, I should. It'd be good, wouldn't it? There'll always be someone to aim it at. Obviously, it started off specifically about Russ Hinds, and to a lesser degree, JB Peterson. But Russ Hinds, the Minister for Everything in Queensland, he was the original target. It's moved on. Clive Palmer's had a go as the target. Dear Kyle Sandlands has been the recent target, for obvious reasons. So yeah, sometimes you look out in the crowd. Obviously, when we're doing Red Hot Summer shows, and there's all ages and stuff, and there's some all ages shows on this tour we're doing. We're going to leave that one out just because it can be a bit abrasive to the young ear when it's first heard that song.
Fat Rich Cats.
Cats. Yeah. But I mean, here's the great thing with the Angels was, even though everyone says the No Way Get Lost thing, it was never in the song. So it's not like they're saying it. It's like the crowd saying it. So I learnt that a little bit, that lesson a bit late. But anyway, I'll never forget being in the studio with the guys in the choir boys were there, Baby Animals. I'm going to put them all in it. They all sang this song with us when we recorded the original version. They all came in for the big group vocal. Baby Animals, as I said, choir boys. I think who else was there? Mortal Sin. Some of the guys from Mortal Sin were there. So they too are all equally involved and culpable for putting out that song.
We've just had the 1 year anniversary of Paulie's passing, which was devastating, especially for you, but for the entire music industry. And he was such an important part of the songwriting process of this band. What sort of a vault did he have, and will parts of that vault filter through into future Screaming Jets releases over the years?
Yeah, well, there's another from the last sessions that we did. There's another probably 4 or 5 songs that are close to being finished. And he did a bunch of work with Scotty Kingman, our guitarist. They committed plenty of riffs and ideas to tape. So yeah, that's something we'll definitely be looking through. And as I said, the ones that we recorded for the professional misconduct sessions, they're definitely going to be seeing the light of day somewhere. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe it's been a year, but we've been very lucky that his place has been taken by another one of his best mates from Newcastle. And of course, not only the songwriting is integral, but Paulie's backing vocals they're just part of the Jet sound. So Paul Elliott's been able to come along and be fairly really spot on with replicating Paulie's backing vocals.
Just on the subject of Paul, I guess with his passing, this now makes you the tribal elder of the band. You're the only one from the original days left. Jimmy is the second longest serving member of the Screaming Jets now, and he hasn't clocked up the 20-year period yet, coming soon, just a couple of years away. But you're it to basically retell the stories of those early days. And, prior to Screaming Jets, it even went back a lot further than that, wasn't it? You and Grant and Paul were in other bands, or at least had another name prior to Screaming Jets.
Yeah, definitely are. So myself and Grant were in a band called Aspect, which lasted for about a good 3.5 years, but from about 1985-ish to 1988. And then so for the last little while of that band, Paul came and filled in on bass. He was replacing our bass player, who was a miner. He used to work the dog watch shift, so he'd have to leave early and go and get into the mine. So Paul would come and fill in for the last set. And kind of out of those two bands, they were totally opposed. They were different bands. Paulie's band, the Embers, they were like a 60s garage band, pointy shoes and all that kind of mod kind of behaviour. And obviously we were shirts off, sweaty AC/DC Angels, cold chisel driven rock band. So Paulie always had a much cooler kind of bent to him than we did growing up. He's a very cool customer. So when he got in the band with us and we kind of started making our relationship, it was it was such a great thing, because we weren't all coming from the same area, we weren't all coming from the same genre or direction, and it kind of made for a really perfect match in many ways.
Are there actually recordings that exist of those early bands?
Yes, there's recordings of those bands. There's we prided ourselves very early on doing lots of gigs. We wanted to play as many gigs as we can. We loved watching, band practice would finish and we'd watch The Last Stand, or we'd watch the Angels' Narara 83. They were our two training videos as a young band. The Aspect put out a thing called Vengeance 303. We'd done 300 shows in 3 years. And that was we put out an EP with like 5 tracks on it, a cassette with 5 tracks on it. So that was the only release that ever happened with Aspect. Paulie, I'm not sure whether they recorded much.
That would be very, very interesting to hear. When I go back and have a look at early set lists for like AC/DC or even the Rolling Stones for that matter, the very first AC/DC set list has nothing in it that they ever moved forward through. In fact, I think it was pretty much all covers, that first AC/DC show. And same with the Rolling Stones. None of the songs from that first Rolling Stones show actually ended up becoming Rolling Stone songs. What about that very first Screaming Jets set list? What would that look like compared to what you went on to record?
Yeah, well, there's definitely some songs. There was the two songs that we concentrated on when we won the Battle of the Bands and went in with Steve James to record. Actually, there was three. One was called "The Sun's on the Streets" again. Another one was what was that one called? Now you're testing my memory. So yeah, we went in with three songs. We had the opportunity to record at Sun Studios in Sydney with Steve James. First time we'd met him. Uh, what was it? Yeah, so Sun's on the Streets, another song, and Shine On was the other song that we
Wow.
worked on.
Okay.
But I'll never forget that was the first time we'd met Steve and our engineer. And Dave Price, the engineer, goes, Paulie was in the studio and he goes, all right, give us some singing, Paulie. And of course, Paulie has this massive voice. And Dave Price thought he'd broken something. Like when Paulie started singing, he's like reaching for every knob, like, what is that? What is that crazy sound coming through the mic? So that was one thing I remember. I also remember at the time I didn't know that Steve James
Sid.
was Sid James's son.
Yeah.
And I walked out of the studio and dead set there was a Carry On movie on, and I was like, because we all know Sid, everyone
Yeah.
knew Sid James, and I looked at it and I was like, wow, geez, that guy in the studio looks just like that bloke. And I went in and I said, are you related to Sid James? And of course he said, yeah, I'm his son, and our love for him grew even more. But yeah, I'd still have memories of those recording sessions. If only I could remember that other song that we were going to do. It was the one that we thought this is the one that's going to take us to the top, and it never saw the light of day. So
Yeah.
it's all about, I guess that's when you start taking on other people's advice and hearing more from an outside view or listens to the song. I remember when we came in with Better, people were kind of excited pretty well straight off the bat about that one. So yeah, it's always nice to be playing to someone when you start off and getting a reaction and say, oh, okay, we can move that way.
Yes. And it was a great relationship with Steve James as well. He basically became your George Martin for many, many albums.
Yeah, he's still a part. He did the first two, and then we got Robbie Adams for the third one, and then he did the fourth one, and then he came back on board for Chrome 2017. So yeah, he's been back in the camp. I love him like a dear brother or uncle. He's a great man.
Mm. Have you had much of a chance to cross paths with the Angels since you left the Angels? And like I know, John and Rick have left the door open for you to jump up anytime you want. So has that occurred yet?
It hasn't occurred. I haven't jumped up with them yet, but I was only watching the SBS Diesel series the other night where they talked about the 2018 Symphony of Angels concert. And I was watching that, and I sent the boys all a message to say how much I missed them and how much I loved making music with those guys. How much it meant to me that I was able to step into the band, be accepted by not only them but the fans as well. And I think together we all got the Angels back up to a level that it has been deserving of all these years. So it was a great time, and John turned 75 the other day. So those guys have been making music and playing it and getting out there and doing it live for all these years, and they still really love it.
You've been having a lot of fun with Fabulous Caprettos, an Australian supergroup, and it just must be a hoot being in a band like that where everybody in the lineup is somebody everybody knows, and their songs are songs everybody knows. And you do four of yours, and Russell does four of his, and on and on. That must be like the ultimate. It's like being on a classic rock format, but actually playing all the music.
Yeah, it is, and the great part about it is because I've done them before where someone will come on stage and then the others will go off. So, it'll just be one of the main guys at a time. But with this, and it's all being on stage together, and the banter that goes on, and it really is a hoot. And to know that it's not everything rests on you. You got your 4 songs throughout the night, and singing backing vocals on some of those songs is just fantastic. Playing the tambourine is something that I've become very adept at. But I mean, and all those guys, Jack Jones, guitar playing and voice, absolutely amazing. Russell's just an amazing pioneer. Ray Thistlethwaite, man, that guy is a freak. The guy, he's a musical genius if ever I've met one. So it's just a great bunch of fellas, and we have a good old time and have a laugh backstage, and that's great.
How do you plan ahead for the wit of Russell Morris? Because if you're unprepared on stage and he throws a one-liner at you and you don't have a comeback, you're gone.
Yeah, I know. He's a beauty, Russell. He can cut you with his words very quickly. But no, he's been very generous to me, and obviously I came in to replace Daryl Braithwaite. And I obviously don't have his track record of massive hits, but I try to make up with it with a few cartwheels and stuff like that.
Cartwheels, that would be worth going along to alone to see.
Yeah, one cartwheel a night I can usually manage.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hope we do see some new Screaming Jets in 2025. Lifeblood the tour, and Dave, good to have you here at Noise 11.
Cheers, Paul. Always a pleasure to catch up, mate.